guys, welcome back to my channel. I have a treat for you tonight. First, we're going to start out with a little blast from the past fragrance, a couple fragrance reviews, and then I want to get into some nursing myths and debunk them. All right, so these are going to be some controversial opinions. This is my opinion, and I want to add to the discourse about some of the things that we're struggling with as nurses. Okay, so let's get into it. Number one, so I was watching one of my favorite beauty YouTubers, the Welsh twins. It's James Welsh and Robert Welsh. They each have their own channel. I will link their channels and their joint twin channel down in the description section, okay? But anyway, I was watching one of their old videos. They were looking at vintage, like what was their favorite old perfume, right? And one of them came up was the Britney Spears Fantasy perfume. And I just had so many memories, so many flashbacks because the Britney Spears Curious perfume was my most favorite thing back then. Definitely brought back memories when I watched that video. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm sure that it's not expensive to get my hands on this anymore, and I'm gonna go online and find it, and I did. So the large size here of the Curious by Britney Spears perfume, and I'm ready to take a trip down memory lane. So I'm gonna open this up and spray it. I know you guys can't smell through the video, but I'm just cracking up. Like, it's so 2007, which may not even be the year this came out, so don't quote me on that. Yeah, I still absolutely love it. If you guys smell me at work and you're like, why does she smell like 2006 Britney Spears? This is why. And then number two, I am fortunate enough to get as a gift from my mom the After Hours Sol de Janeiro new fragrance spray. So this is described as a midnight jasmine and amber woods perfume mist, and I know this is really popular right now, more of like a winter scent, and it is very evening sort of scented, but it's still a really bright scent, so I'm excited to wear this as well. And I will, post both of these things in the description. All right, number three, I haven't touched up my makeup. All right, so next, I have not touched up my makeup all day. I put this on at around 7:30 this morning, and it is 7:03 in the evening. So this is a full 12 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and just touch up my lips with some lip balm here. This is something that I've really been loving as well. This is from Ulla Henriksen, and this is the Pout Preserve Peptide Lip Treatment. And the flavor is their new holiday flavor. It's the Lingonberry Jam. Let's get into the controversy here, which is not really a controversy. This is purely coming from a place of lifting up our profession and talking about these things that are plaguing our career and how we're going to get through them together. So yesterday, I'm sure you guys have all heard of Nurse John, who I absolutely adore. I used to follow him on Instagram before I got rid of my old Instagram. Now I have a new one for the channel, but it's been a while since I really watched his videos. But since then, I've discovered he came out with a podcast, and Nurse John is hilarious nurse, totally relate to all of his videos, and he creates great content. So very excited to listen to his podcast. So the first episode I listened to was about what are the things that you wish you would have known before getting into the industry of healthcare. And I really thought it was super interesting, and I wish I was there talking with him about it. And so I'm going to talk to you guys. And I think that's a great conversation. So yeah, let's get into it. A lot of it revolved around the emotional difficulties of the job and how to handle those. I also had done a quick online search, and I wanted to look at what are some of the nursing myths and bust them. And I came across a Reddit thread that was kind of discouraging, and it kind of reminded me why I got off of social media for a little bit. And I'm not going to resubscribe to that because I do believe in the power of positivity, and I do believe in working through things and coming out better on the other side. But I did want to talk about that in conjunction with this episode that Nurse John did about people writing in about the things that they wish that they had known and things like that. So I want to kind of bust these nursing myths. First of all, one of the myths that came up was the myth of the BSN, that you can gain everything that you need to learn just with your ADN degree to become a nurse, or the diploma if that's where you got educated. But they basically, in this thread were saying that the BS stands for BS, bull crap, okay? And that it wasn't a necessary degree, and that was the myth. The myth was that you needed to get your BSN. And I want to bust that myth, because I first got my ADN in 2016. In 2021, I started my BSN online. I wanted to go back to school and achieve that. And I graduated in 2022. It took me about a year. I went to Western Governors University, and I have to say it was quite affordable, number one. And number two, I learned a tremendous amount in that education that I did not know before I went into it. Because of that education, I have now been able to advance and do a lot more things to improve our working environment than I did before without that. It is 100% worth it to get that degree, number one. Number two, I learned everything about how the systems work in the hospital and outside, and it gave me a huge context and huge perspective, even though I had been working in the field for 5 years before I went back. And I learned so much from this. That to me is just worth it. It's worth your time to do it. You're going to save yourself a lot of confusion and turmoil on the inside unless you learn about how the system around you is working and how specifically it's either harming you, helping you, or not doing anything for you. And the only way you're going to be able to change that is if you get the credentials and the education to do it. Unfortunately, besides action, besides unionization, besides policy changing, and besides actual quality improvement initiatives, just complaining about the things that we don't like at work and just talking about it with our work friends isn't going to get us anywhere. And I think that was a huge motivation for me to start my channel, is because I was tired of talking to people at work about things that frustrated me, things that I knew were not providing great care for patients, things that I knew were not providing a good work environment for myself. And the only way to do anything about it is to talk about it in a meaningful platform, in a meaningful way. And that's why I'm getting my master's degree, is to actually make a difference here. So that's the number one first myth. The bachelor's degree is not BS. It's a really good thing to do, and I highly recommend doing it. The other thing with that is we have a lot of the issues that we face as nurses as far as pay and respect goes, and how we are seen on this healthcare team. Unfortunate to say this, I do think it does have something to do with their level of education. Now, I don't expect other disciplines to fully understand what we do as nurses. If they needed to do that, they would have gone to nursing school. We are the experts in nursing care. We are the experts in the patient. And so we deserve to have that respect. And I can be that without having a bachelor's degree. That's very true. But when you look at a care team of people that are assigned to a patient in an inpatient setting, you've got the physical therapist if they've been consulted, occupational therapist if they've been consulted, speech therapist, physician, possibly a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant, and you have us, the nurses, and you also have a social worker or a care manager, which is a nurse as well. Besides the nurse, the minimum degree requirement for this group of people collectively is a master's degree, and most of the people in this group have a graduate doctorate degree, and we don't require that, and that's okay, but because we don't need a master's degree to know how to care for a patient in a very high quality way. However, having that bar be at the associate degree level, while again, I started out as an ADN, and I love that. I had a fantastic school experience. I highly recommend my school. I loved it. It was hard, but after getting my bachelor's degree, I now see that value, and I really want us to be able to get that respect that we deserve, and I think that a big part of that is we all need to be bachelor's prepared. We need to be taken seriously, and unfortunately, we're just not. So, again, super controversial, I know, but I really want to give some pushback to that sense that we don't need this bachelor's degree because it's false and it does help you. All right, so there's that. Number 2, nursing myth that I'm going to be busting is that nurses are mean girls. This is an extremely damaging stereotype that if we as nurses play into and accept it and repeat it, we're just hurting ourselves. This is misogynistic. It is implying that if you're a nurse, you're only doing it because you're a mean girl and you want to control other people, which doesn't take into account, number 1, male nurses, number 2, transgendered or non-binary nurses, and number 3, anybody who identifies as not a girl, because I do not identify as a girl, let alone a mean girl. So that in and of itself to me is just misogyny. Number 2, it's implying at a deeper root that people go into this profession to assert that control over another person, and they somehow get some kind of excitement from that. And it's just patently false. Yes, there are bad apples everywhere, all over the world, in every profession, but I don't know any nurse that I've ever worked with that I can say truly meant to hurt or harm anybody that they either worked with or were caring for. And I think that the concept of a mean girl is that you do have to have some intent behind that negative behavior, which is really embodied in that movie Mean Girls, right? Regina George wanted to go out and humiliate these girls because she wanted to be seen as better than them. And I've never worked with anybody like that. I can 100% tell you that is not an accurate reflection of the nursing community. And so if we, like I said, if we're going into this discourse about the things that are wrong with our profession and how to help them, saying that we're mean girls or perpetuating that in any way, shape, or form is not, it's detrimental to us. We cannot affect change in this broken system to put patients truly first and to put ourselves and healthcare workers first in the system, and unless we bolster ourselves up and we act in unity. And I'm not saying that every nurse thinks this or repeats this. It's not. I think that it's coming externally. But if we're on forums kind of playing into that and saying, oh, I didn't know that everybody I worked with would be so mean, it's so much more complex than that. And that is not excusing any nurse bully whatsoever, because they do exist. Absolutely. And we need to fix that. The whole thing needs to be fixed. But reflecting negatively back onto your profession is not helping it unless you do something about it. So that's how I feel about that. So no, nurses are not mean girls, and we need to push back when we hear that. Okay, those were the 2 things that I was reading on the Reddit thread. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up was from Nurse John's podcast. And one of the things that one of his writers wrote in was they wish that they would have known before they became a nurse how much grief comes with that. And that is absolutely true. And it's okay to feel those grieving feelings when you lose a patient or a bad outcome happens. And this is not to say that any kind of performative grief is okay, because it's absolutely not, and it's exploiting the situation. But you are allowed to grieve these things when they happen. Whether it be a code that you happen to be doing compressions on and helping out, but it wasn't your patient and you didn't know them, that's traumatic. You've been through a trauma, grieve, go through those stages. Or if it's a patient that you had for a very long time and they passed away. And I'll give you an example. I myself have been through this. Before I became an RN, I was a home health aide, and I cared for a small child, a little boy who had very severe epilepsy. And other than the seizures, he played and acted like a normal kid. And I just hung out with him and I played with him and I got to know him and I was just his little babysitter for a while. And then one day he passed away from a seizure at 7 years old. And he is my angel. I was devastated. I was devastated when he died. Even though this was a professional relationship, it's okay to care and truly care. And it's okay to truly not care about your patients too, as long as you're professionally caring for them and everything that entails. But as long as you're not crossing any boundaries and you have somebody that passes away, give yourself some grace to feel that grief. I mean, I was devastated about this child, and still to this day, that was about 10 years ago, and I still think of him as my little angel. So that is absolutely true. That is not a myth to debunk. You will feel these difficult emotions, but you will also feel so much joy when all of the things that you have been training for and have moved through school to become an expert on about advancing other people's health and gaining them back to a good level of function or making them even better than they were before, which I know is very difficult. Okay, I'm not saying it's easy, but if you can advance a care plan for somebody, that joy is super real. And fall back on those moments when you've got the really hard grief moments too. So that's just my 2 cents about that. I totally agree that is not a myth. You will grieve. There will be grief in this process, but it's worth it. All right, guys. Last myth to debunk is that you will never receive any recognition from anybody for what you do, or that admin somehow does not want to recognize you for what you do. Now, caveat, I have worked for a lot of different managerial systems and people and administrations. Some of them, yeah, they don't really care about what you do or how you do it or how good you are. And if you are good at it, they'll just pile more work on you. So here's the thing with that. If you're in that situation, you need to leave that job because they're not all like that. And that's the myth, is that they're all like that. Busted, not correct. There's a few different categories here of acute care, which is probably going to be one of your better bets for getting a good management and leadership team. So you could either go like a private or nonprofit, or you could go for a academic medical center. And any of these hospitals, they can apply for a magnet status. The magnet means that they're a magnet for nursing professionals, that they do their management well. This is not always true. Just because they have the magnet does not mean that they execute it well. They have to meet certain criteria. I believe one of the criteria is to have a shared governance system. Whether or not that shared governance system is effective or not, that's the individual place. So you got to start there. Don't work for a private company. So put that out of the way. If you work for a profit or even a nonprofit kind of private hospital system, they're gonna still be maximizing their profits because their main focus is making money. Yes, the academic medical institution, they also want to make their money, but their main focus is on that research, and they're willing to pay a little bit more and put a lot more time into making that quality in that academic environment the very best that it can be, because they want that recognition. So starting there, I think, is a good way to go. Of course, not every area has a good academic medical center, and I'm being a little biased, but you can hear through word of mouth whichever facility that you want to apply to if they treat their nurses well or not. And you need to rely on that. If you're in a place that they're not treating you well, you have to leave. The only way to make this change is with our actions. It's not acceptable. And eventually, this is a bigger problem of allowing, private companies to make profit over sick patients, which individual nurses are probably not going to be able to have huge effect on, but we can if we come together and we elevate our nursing profession, we lobby, we do all those things. So Yes. If your workplace does not treat you right, leave them. The myth is that there are no workplaces that will treat you right. Yes, they are. They are out there, they exist, and they want to recognize you, and they have opportunity for advancement and bonus pays and things like that. On the flip side of that is I don't think that you can expect like recognition for your good behavior and your good purpose as a nurse. And if you want that recognition, you have to give it to yourself. And this is where I think a lot of nurses kind of get tripped up, is that they're working so hard and then and I've been there. I've kind of come out from the other side of this, but it's a journey and I'm going to keep working through it. But you're working so hard, you're literally killing yourself, and you're not getting any recognition from the people who you work for. Of course, that's going to hurt. But when you're in that like acute fight or flight mode of work, you're not able to see the bigger picture for the care plan of the patient. And because of that, you're not able to recognize the great work that you are doing. Even though you know on a superficial level, on a surface level, yes, I'm doing great work, I'm working so hard, da 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 da. Take a second with your patients every day in the morning and look at, and this is not advice for more experienced nurses, so no offense if you already know this, but this is what I tell new nurses, nursing students, and new grads, is when you come in the morning, you need to set your plan of care for the day. And this does not mean whatever it is you're going to chart. This is what you're going to be doing as the nurse to advance their plan. And those actions are really the work that you're doing. It's not cleaning up the poop, although that is part of it. It's calling a family member. It's following up with a physical therapist, following up with a social worker. It's removing the Foley when you recognize that it's been in too long. It's proactively checking and draining everything and checking all of the sites for whatever surgical sites they may have. It's weaning their oxygen proactively. All of those things are little things. And of course, I'm only speaking from like my area of practice, but say you're in rehab, it could be initiating that patient getting dressed and having them start to do it instead of you putting their socks on really quick because it's faster. Those are the little things that you can do that are transforming your labor, your physical labor, into what is your profession. And that's how you're going to get recognition, is you have to get that self-satisfaction to know that you're working to the highest ability that you can and what your mission is as a professional. So yes, we deserve recognition. Yes, we deserve raises, all of those things, but come from the inside first. If you have that confidence that you're like, hey, I'm doing the right thing here and I'm doing really good, your supervisors will recognize that. So that's my 2 cents. I think that I covered a lot and I'm really excited to get into this more in the future with you guys. Again, like the video, ring the bell, subscribe, and comment. There is hope out there for you guys. We are a fantastic profession and we deserve the recognition. So keep working hard, you guys. I love and respect all of you, and I can't wait to talk to you later, okay? Bye.